Okay, call to order for our board meeting of Thursday, July 16th. So adoption of the agenda. We have a review of it, anything untoward, we're good to go.
Kind of weird at the top, it says Thursday, August 20th.
That's a notice.
That's a notice. Oh, okay. Alright. Got it.
But I still don't understand why.
It's giving notice of the next meeting
Oh,
and the agenda for today's meeting. Okay,
I move that we adopt the agenda as written.
second.
Seconded.
All in favor? Okay. Minutes, approval of minutes from the June 18th board meeting. They are presented here.
I don't think the adjournment was 8:22 p.m. Pretty sure. Pretty sure. It was long, but not that long.
That is true. We probably went till about 5:22.
5:22.
Oh,
That was Eastern Standard Time.
Thank you for catching that. Anything else everybody spotted?
No motion to approve. Or if that's what we done.
We're motion to approve. Yeah. A second.
Seconded.
All in favor? Okay. I will give these to the administrator.
everything's on the website now. All the
Awesome.
signed minutes, meeting schedules, everything. Agenda for today.
And we were going to put up draft minutes so that we wouldn't have to wait a month? Or you're signing them right here now?
That was the June 18th minutes I
Right.
just signed. We discussed at a previous meeting whether we would put draft minutes up prior to them being approved at the next meeting. I think we agreed we would do that. That did not happen this past month, but as we get back into our rhythm here, we'll prepare these minutes and we'll have them put up a big draft on them.
Right.
And then when they're approved, the draft will come off and the signed version will go up.
Perfect. Thank you.
But I'd suggest we do that for board minutes only, not guidelines.
Yeah.
Okay, so reports. First report on the list is the administrator's report. Shall we let the administrator present her report to us? Or any questions of the director?
Do you want me to read it all out to you?
Or just whatever it is that you, in your own words, just what you think is important off here.
Okay, so basically this is, I talked about priorities with Ian, and we've been working down the priorities with also getting water bills out. And so this is since July 1st, the order of importance, I believe. So the FOI request completion. Gary Mason is coming up tomorrow at 1 to go over process. So, yeah, he's got the information ahead of time. We're going to go over process so we don't miss anything. The mutual aid agreement. I had called James Warren. He's on holidays till July 23rd. So I'll call him back after that.
What's the issue with that?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
What's the issue with the mutual aid agreement?
I don't know. Well, Gord had written on the bottom of it that there was an issue that had to be amended, and he would provide that at some point, and has not. So I'm calling James Warren to ask for the mutual aid agreement to see if it's different than what we have in the file.
There was a notation by Gord on the file, on the document itself, saying don't sign yet, checking in with CDRD. So we are now checking in with CDRD to see if there is something that has changed in that agreement before we sign.
Okay, thank you.
The updated bylaw 263, again, that's an issue I'll go over with Gary Mason tomorrow.
That's the meeting procedures, our meetings policy.
Yeah, that's our meeting procedures, but what,
Just what the motions that we voted on. So, yeah, this is just working together.
Modified code of conduct policy, working on it. This point 5 is really interesting. Graham, in the audit, they discovered there were 29 less parcel tax invoices issued in 2019 versus 2018. So I had to do a pretty big analysis to try and figure out why that happened. And what it turned out is when we converted from Right Water to Ice City, it didn't populate the field that would make the invoices print, so, which was a surprise. So the same people would have been missed in 2020. So did the analysis, figured out who we missed, have since run the bills. For 2019, it was an extra $10,350, and for 2020, another $11,310. So all that revenue will get posted into 2020. But the invoices are gone with a letter explaining what happened and that it wasn't their fault. Mind you, nobody did come in and say. And that's actually untrue. 2 people did come in to say, I'm not sure why I didn't get my bill. And we looked and it's like, you didn't get a bill. And that's why it was sort of in the back of both of our heads going, there's something going on. But it was found in the audit, which was really helpful.
So this was the software glitch from
Conversion. Yeah, I know. We're now 2 years into the program. So we can work with it. So the May, June 2020 utility bill preparation, they'll be in the mail today for 4/5. Collections. Yeah, Lindsay and I have gone over the process. I looked at your last meeting and looked at all the discussion around the information that you didn't have. And the reports that I can print have all that information on it. It has people's names, the dates. You know, it's not just one-dimensional number. There's a lot of detail. So.
But does it tell us where you're at in the process? Because that's what we don't know.
No, the process, and I've done collections last year for the utility billing, and I can't remember how many steps it was at that time, but at the end of it, I have to give Danny a letter to go post, and then he's got the letter to give them saying we're turning it off. And at that point, every single one of them came in to pay. But it's the same people over and over and over, and I don't know how you discourage that.
Well, I mean, we could actually change the bylaw where, you know, if they're delinquent at a certain amount, then, you know, if they're repetitive people.
It is repetitive.
So the report that you'll give us then will have the information on what we were kind of really missing for me was the fact that we didn't know how many people they were, how each amount was, and at what step in the process you were at with the collections, right? So if we could have a spreadsheet, and you'd have to develop one anyway, right, that would track that? So
Well, no, because what it does is there's a program you can get out of the software that details your accounts receivable aged. And then, so it'll tell you how many, where they are on the aging summary. And then we would have to pull together another report saying, we've done this step, this step, this step.
Yeah, I think that's something that we kind of need, and
Yeah,
I don't know, it's something you probably would need to build anyway to keep track of everything.
Yeah,
It seems like quite an onerous process.
it is. It is.
Yeah.
But you have to do it.
As well, a parallel process for the parcel taxes.
Same.
Yeah.
But it is interesting because it would be nice to get a bit of guidance because I know that with the utility billing, if they don't pay it, you can slip it over into parcel tax and then you can look at a tax sale. So I don't even know at what point you would do that. Do you know?
On the water usage, on the water, no, I'm not sure, actually, that's probably something you can find out.
Because I guess you have-
suggest we table this for another discussion, right, as to how we would do this. So I think what we're expressing is that there is more action that we want to take, that we want to see reporting, and that if we reach a point in time where we are not being successful collecting either parcel taxes or water bills, that we may want to explore our bylaw, what it provides for now, and what we might want to add to it, that would give us more leverage. I do know that when we look at the audit report later, that there is, some discussion of that in there, saying that tax sales may be a vehicle that are difficult to execute on because the legal costs of doing so might be onerous, right? So I think we're going to have to look at that and whether, moving water over to that tax bill is effective, or whether shutting off water is more effective is probably a worthwhile discussion.
It's effective.
It's
The water makes sure it's very effective.
Are we okay with doing that? Like, let's get the reporting going, and if we end up at that issue, then we'll have to discuss what we want to do about it.
So, point 8, the financial statements. So, due to the limitations of the program, it's really hard to pull the statements right out of the program. That makes sense. So, we're not the only ones. There's other, especially improvement districts, that actually take the trial balance, enter it into Excel to print financial statements. It's ridiculous, but yeah, we've had support. It's just not a great program.
So the program is just, I'd like to understand this. The new program with BAM software that we got is not easy to print out a financial
It's not
statement.
easy to do anything. It's meant for populations up to 500,000. So I don't know, Graham can probably speak to the municipalities have better luck with it. He has mentioned that they have a very robust accounting department to work with them, with the program. But for us, we have to work in each module. And so we're trying to learn each module, which is not easy. But if all you did was accounts payable day in and day out, you'd master it. So the financial statements do not fall out of it easily. We tried, and we had support work with us, and there were problems with it. So just, how much time you put into it, we just...
Yeah, it's kind of disappointing though, really, because
It is.
we were told that was the most user-friendly software that was out there, which it doesn't quite seem to be the way it is. Especially for the cost.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
So I think the point here is that getting financial statements on a timely basis is going to be challenging. And what Janice is telling us is that for any given month, we should expect the financial statements 6 weeks after it ends.
Because basically what I do is I close the month off on the 25th. So like May would close June 25th. That way we can get all the payables in, and then I have to close up each module, and there's a processing time. I can try and get it to you as quick as I can, but it's going to be in Excel. So, and I'll try and give you the statements that we talked about it, the information that you want. I mean, you can do anything in Excel.
I think the biggest thing for us is to actually have a statement that matches our revenue stream where, is it a 4-month cycle that we have actually, the financial statement breaks at where we've been paid for 4 months and this is our 4 months cost, right? To make it relevant. The last one we got was 2 months of revenue and 4 months of cost. So it was really kind of hard to equate to that.
Well, I can tell you, that's not how they're
Okay.
done.
All right, good, yeah.
So we'll be seeing financial statements on a regular basis as part of the administrator's report. It's just that they will be a month delayed.
Yeah.
That's better than what we've been doing up till now, or recently, because we haven't been seeing financial statements. So this will be a great addition to our ability to govern, if you will.
Get the information.
Could I ask a quick question, Ms. Dennis? Going up to item number 1, you may have already done this, and if so, great, but have you done the province puts out a freedom of information course?
Done it. We've all done it. Everyone in the office.
Okay,
And
and one for the local government?
everybody actually, Danny did it, Keith did it, Sonia, everyone's done it, Lindsay, myself.
Great,
So we've all done it.
thank you.
So thank you, guys. Any other questions? Motion to adopt the report.
Second, our motion.
A second.
All in favor? Okay.
This is
I guess you can stay on here, right? My fire chief's report, you were going to present for
on
Chief
and
Dan.
on. So there's the monthly one, and I haven't had it, oh, Suzanne, you didn't hear. Ian can't make it to the meeting, his wife's car broke down behind me in Campbell River, so he has had
Let's
to rescue her.
not a bit personal, or
Yeah.
public consumption.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, no problem.
So I haven't read it. So this is his monthly report.
And there's the annual as well.
And the annual as well.
If you're not familiar with the monthly, then we can just read it and
Yeah, we'll leave it on our own time.
I do know that one issue that he definitely wanted brought up, and he said it was in his report, was the age of the fire truck. He said you can certify them till they're 30 years old. It's 6 months of being 30 years old. So,
Is this the one we just bought?
no, well, it was used when he bought it. It was
I know,
used for
I know.
lots. So he said he can get an extension to have it certified, but this should have sort of come up sooner, that you will be looking at having to buy a new fire truck. And when I say new to Union Bay fire truck.
Isn't it a problem with, I think there's something with the truck that they got was the only one that fit the hall.
And that would be the other issue he talked about, is there's a huge issue fitting the truck into the fire hall. He had to modify the doors to make sure it could go in, but a fire hall is a fair ways away. But a new to Union Bay truck can't be a fair ways away, it's got to be acted on fairly quickly. So he's pulling together all the information to present about it.
so I would expect we'll see a business case which will be largely based on regulations and requirements, and it will, I would expect to see a bylaw prepared that we would appropriate funding for.
Is engine 25 the one you just bought, or the one that we had previous to that?
He's so.
Sure. I don't know. It doesn't, he can tell us.
Yeah.
Let's just,
Can I just ask, does this mean it won't be insured?
It will be insured, it's the certification.
What does that mean?
I guess when they hit 30 years old,
Mechanically.
yeah, they still work, they're fine, but they're no longer certified by URL. I don't know who that is.
But if you used it, let's say a year down the road, would you be in trouble or like?
He mentioned that if it's not certified, every homeowner's
Insurance.
house insurance.
Yes. If you don't have a certified fire truck, it can affect our home insurance, house
Yes.
insurance.
It's gotta be done annually after that age, it has to be done once a year.
So they assured them there can be an extension.
Yeah.
So it gives enough time to work on finding a new truck.
Okay, so I move to accept the report.
No, she's finished, because we got the end. What about the end?
Oh.
Well, I think we should.
I
Yeah, let's
just,
accept them one at a time.
Yeah,
and again, I wasn't sure where in which report he had mentioned the truck, but he said it was definitely mentioned. So-
yeah, it's on page,
It's in the monthly
Oh,
report.
monthly
In the
one.
monthly report.
page 3.
And I feel bad that I couldn't do more justice to his annual report. I was very proud of it.
Yeah, so it should be.
Yeah.
Expecting Dan to pick this up a little bit.
I know.
Okay,
Oh, that
so
says-
motion to adopt the monthly fire chief's report.
That's the move.
Seconded.
All in favor? Okay, annual fire chief's Union Bay Fire Rescue Report.
Too bad, I just saw it in the monthly one. It is engine 25.
Yeah.
He uses a lot of toner.
Yeah, the table with the blue on page 6, unfortunately.
Yeah,
I
that's
can't read that.
I do know that the numbers have really come up for the volunteers. They're really happy now, and they've been slowly replacing their equipment. And just did a big mask order, probably a month and a bit ago, so everybody could train together. And yeah.
I thought this was a very well done report, and congratulations to Chief Han for doing such great work. I have no questions about this report.
I move to accept the report.
Motion to accept the report, second. All in favor? Okay, Public Works Report. We have both monthly and annual reports. Over to Superintendent.
So, two of those, you don't have the July one there?
Sure.
Well, I have my copy right here. Do you have a July in yours report? In your package?
We are June 2020 and June.
Oh, so we may only have your annual.
I have June 2020.
So it's just
No, no,
June.
June.
Okay.
We want you.
Well, let's have a look at June 1st. I can just, do you guys just want to ask questions, or if you've already read?
Well, is there anything important you want to bring out of this, or?
Not really. I mean, the water treatment plant is running really well. We're probably at about 75% capacity right now, which seems high, and it is, but we'll have one day at, say, 850 cubic meters, and the next day it'll rain, and it'll go down to 450 cubic meters. So we're using a lot of water on our lawns, which I don't really like that much, because we're paying a lot for the water. But the plant's running really well. It's state of the art. It's pulling a lot of the color out of the water, which is what it's designed to do, and it's the quality of water is amazing. So we're really fortunate to have that. The water distribution system, yeah, June was a crazy month. 5 leaks in that month alone. The leaks are sporadic. They're mostly up in Kilmarnock subdivision, but they're everywhere. I would say probably 75% of our leaks are in the Kilmarnock subdivision, which is Callaway that when they put it in, they didn't do it very good. And we're paying for it now. The system is quite old, so you can factor that into it as well, but we don't seem to have that same type of problems anywhere else in the system. So it's due to the way it was installed in 1975. All our samples coming back negative from the health, and the lake is doing really well. I think I had that on my July report. I'll talk about that. Basically, right now, I was up at the lake today, and we're at minus 10 centimeters below the spill level. This exact same time last year, we're minus 30 centimeters. So we're 3 times more water in there right now. Put in a couple new services this month. Another couple repairs, one on Kilmarnock, one on High Street. And our consumption, like I say, it goes from 500 cubic meters a day to 900 overnight, just like that. It seems that it's hot and warm and people want to water their grass, and they're paying for it for sure. They're paying for it as well. I think it's something we should definitely have a discussion about maybe some other time, but our rate structure could change to when people want to water their lawns, they should really have to pay for it. Gardens don't swallow up that much water. It's just grass. And it's a lot of money putting onto your grass. So our water is pretty cheap considering it's $1.30 a cubic meter. And
So, question on that.
yeah.
My understanding is that our system recovers all costs of operation through the water tolls. Is that a correct assumption?
It should be. Now, whether it is or not, I don't know. It should.
That was before the treatment plant. I don't think we really know what the cost of that is. We did increase, 20%, I think, but that's an unknown.
In terms of seeing what it costs to operate that?
Yeah.
My question, I thought on something we can discuss it if we want to, right? In terms of water conservation, but if there's no cost to Union Bay, and we need some data to figure that out, that there's not a cost to Union Bay Improvement District when people water their lawns, yet there's a cost to the homeowner. I think that's the homeowner's choice whether they spend money or not. If there's an impact to us in terms of water quality, in terms of cost to us, or in terms of the philosophy of the district as a whole in terms of water conservation, then I think we can have a debate on that. I'm not sure we can have a debate about whether it's appropriate to spend money on the lawn.
It is costing extra money when we go through more water at the plant.
More than we bill out. That's the question, right? It's like, certainly it costs us money in chemicals and all those sort of things, right? But is it more than we bill out? That would be the question I would ask. Yes, please.
I'd like to ask a question. We don't know, because we haven't factored in the cost of the water treatment plant. What we do know that's different is the extraction of the crud, for lack of a better word. I'd like to know more about that. How much is there? What are we doing with it? What does it cost us to take it away?
Yeah.
How much comes? Does the rate vary? Is it the same amount? Those are the questions, because those are unknowns, and those are costing us money.
Correct. Definitely.
So could you expand on that?
Definitely. So like I say, the more water we use, the more stuff we're pulling out, the more chemicals we're using. So yes, that is, when people want to water their lawns, it is definitely costing the plant more to run. The effluent that's coming out of the plant is broken into 3 separate, basically tanks. There's a rinse tank that has very clean water. That is the water that is used to rinse the filter. Now that water, all of that water, goes right back into the headworks of the plant again. So it's all reused, the rinse water. Then there's a backwash water that it's been through the process. Basically, it's not really dirty water. It's too dirty to use for rinse water, but that's the stuff we send to the pond. So that just settles out in the pond, doesn't cost us anything other than pump costs. The third is the float, and that's the heavy stuff, the peat, the color that we can't treat, we can't put into our pond. We have to truck that away, and that's very expensive. So right now, it's costing us $1,500 to get a 5,000 gallon tank pumped out. Now, I'm in discussions with CVRD because the only place we can take that float waste right now is to a wastewater treatment plant in Comox. It costs us a nominal charge of $1,000 just to dump the truck, plus trucking fees. So that's where you're getting your $1,500 from. Now, the last time we had a truck pumping it out was April 8th. So, I'm in discussions right now with CVRD. If we can get it to the landfill, it costs us $50 to dump, not $1,000. So that's a huge difference. CVRD is
So
not
in
very.
other words, I'm going to interrupt you. In
Yeah.
other words, that particular sludge doesn't have to be treated because it's not septic sludge.
That's correct.
So it should go to native soil.
That's correct, and I'm in discussions with CVRD. We've been back and forth. They want to know what was in the water. I gave them all our water tests. They basically have not got back to me. I talked to the head guy today, Chris LaRose at CVRD. He hasn't even heard of it. So his guys aren't communing with their own people. I'm getting real close to pumping that tank out again. I was hoping that we could take it to the landfill because it would save us $1,000. I don't think we're going to make it there. CVRD, this has been 2 months.
Let's not comment too much about CDR.
Yeah, so that's an expense. That's a large expense.
And it's about every 2 months, it sounds like?
We're pushing the limits right now. I'm going to probably have to get a truck in there next week. So April 8th, yeah, April 8th was the last truck.
Any other questions?
This is something we need to keep an eye on, because
The one thing I was going to ask you, did you speak to Daniel, our Area 8 representative?
No.
I think that's what we're going to have to do.
I think this is not a discussion to be had here. I think this is operational in nature, and we have a truck superintendent and Gail work through it.
That's what I'm saying.
And so let's just follow the process.
And to go ahead, Janice and I are now going to be looking at all the financials. So I would say the next meeting that I come to, I'll be able to give you a really good idea of what month-to-month costs is for everything.
But
Chemicals,
Denny's gonna know
labor.
where he's at with his
Yeah.
budget.
great, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Any other questions? So motion to adopt the June monthly report.
Second. Motion to adopt?
Second. All in favor?
You're on.
Thank you. Annual report, is anything in there that is note or different from what we've already discussed?
Well, it's kind of interesting, the water stats. We used 156,000 cubic meters of water last year, which is about 19% of our total allowance from the lake, which is, I mean, not very much really. The lake, we're allowed to take out 809,000 cubic meters, so there's a lot of volume there that's not being used. All our samples last year were all negative, 100%. We're taking in samples 3 days a week. We have online analyzers that are working 24/7. So we've got a really good idea what's happening with our water, that's for sure. 10 new services last year. Repairs, 19 large repairs last year. So when I say large, that's basically you're using an excavator or a back truck. You're not just hand digging it, that's for sure. Which is, more than one a month. It's a lot of it is the lines, not the AC large lines, but the 3/4 inch plastic lines to the house is pretty much 99% of our leaks. lake, it dropped to 58 centimeters below. That was the lowest it got last year, so that was right around September 13th. And then it takes about 2 days to fill it when the rains come. It was pretty crazy. So, and then just a little bit on the water treatment plant, I pretty much covered that. We do have a level 3 operator up there now, Kate. And I'm a level 1, so I'm working towards my level 3. And we also have Sonia up there. She's an operator in training, and she'll be working for her certification as well. That takes a long time. You need 1,750 hours before they'll let you write the exam. So for someone like Sonia, that gets 3 days a week, it's going to take her 3 years before she can even write a level 1 exam. But that's the way that works. So we got a long road ahead of us. That's kind of just a summary of the annual report.
Are there requirements on our VDOT permit in terms of levels of certification?
Yes, yeah. So we have to have a level operator that is the same for the facility. So the facility is class 3. Okay. The highest we get is class 4.
Okay.
So the Victoria, Nanaimo, the new plant in Courtney, that'll probably be a 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Motion to adopt this report?
Second.
I make a motion, accept it, seconded.
All in favor?
We're all in favor.
I should be more clear. Request for a motion. Okay, thank you both for your reports, and to Chief Ham for his reports as well. So the next item on the agenda is the auditor's report, presentation of the 2019 audited financial statements by Graham Roberts from Myers Morris Penny. Graham?
So I'll start with the audit findings. So it's the one that looks like this. Return the funds, so you know what document we're looking about. So given status, sort of second bullet point down here, so where we are in the process of for the statements to be approved, there's a couple things that we still need to do. I need to update the legal confirmations because we did them way back, and COVID sort of slowed down the whole process, but I'm not anticipating any issues there. Also, we require a signed representation letter from management, so that typically they do that after the board's approved the statements. And then also quickly touch base with Janice in regards to subsequent events. She didn't know anything that I didn't know about already. And then also for the board to actually approve the statements before we can issue our final report. So I think things will be, if the board approves the statements today, they'll be dated today, but probably not in your hands. Signed copy probably for next week. That's my thing there. So the next page, a little chart. Changes from the audit service plan. So we changed our materiality from the original audit service plan. That was just because revenue's gone up. We used to use a percentage of revenue, so the revenue's higher this year than last year, so we just bumped up materiality. And the other change that's actually not here is the whole COVID-19. We changed our audit process. We actually started our audit at the office and we pulled the plug after day 1 and sort of did it remotely. So that delayed the process, and the whole COVID-19 delayed the board having a meeting to review the statements and all that. So things have just been delayed because of what's going on. So while we don't look for fraud, we didn't encounter any fraud, no issues with non-compliance. No issues of the related party, no going concern issues, accounting policies are appropriate, and same thing with final statement disclosure, and just, we talked, Janice brought this up about the property taxes, and that's matters right to us matters, that's on page 3, and that's $10,000, which actually Janice billed out in January, but we actually posted that entry of last year. So we set a receivable in the 2019 statement. So when we look at that, we'll see that the AR is up more. So the next page is just sort of a high level of some of the adjustments that we processed this year. as part of the audit. So the first table are actual adjustments that we processed and that are actually in the financial statements. The next bottom part are ones that we didn't process, so small little timing things, and the materiality is 40,000. You can see those unadjusted items are half of that, but they're not significant in any regard in that sense. And the next page is our independence communication. So in order to give an independent audit report, we need the independence, so that's just confirming that. So is there any other questions on our audit findings before I jump into the financial statements?
Trustee Palmer, do you have a question?
Yes, do we have any idea what the unreconciled prepaid expenses of $8,617 is?
I think that's, I can't recall off the top of my head, but that was, I think, probably, through our testing, we found some things that could have been set prepaid that weren't, probably insurance issues. So with insurance, it's always, either your income statement or your balance sheet are potentially out, and this is what this is. So if we book prepaid, then you have less than 12 months in the insurance expense. If you don't book it, then it's a timing thing. It's it rolls over year.
No problem, thank you.
Any other questions about that report? About the audit findings? Any sort of overview again?
Okay, so I'll jump into the actual audited statement. So I'll jump right into the audit report. So it's like sort of 3 or 4 pages in, doesn't have a page number at the bottom. So yeah, this is a clean audit report upon completion of those things I mentioned in the audit finding that we're prepared to, in their opinion, the company consolidated financial statements present fairly non-material respects consolidated financial position of the district as of December 31st, 2019, results of its consolidated operations and its consolidated cash flow for the year-end in accordance with the Canadian accounting standards in accordance with Canadian public sector accounting standards. So it's a clean audit report, so we didn't find anything that would cause us to qualify the report, so it's a clean audit report. So jumping straight into the statement of financial position. So you can see that cash and investments are, if you combine the two of them together, they're down about just under 400,000. That's to be expected because you had a major capital project, so that was used to fund some of the water treatment plant. So then, as part of the whole water treatment plant, actually I'll jump into note 3, accounts receivable, so it ties into some of the financial update that Janice just gave. So note 3 is on page 7. So this just shows the components of the accounts receivable. So you can see that the water tolls receivables are creeping up, as they're up 18,000, and parcel tax is up 43,000, but 10,000 of that was booked in January, so it was never going to be paid by year end. So it's actually a $33,000 increase. So these numbers are creeping up. So it sounds like the board's on top of it, an action plan or that, but it's good to make that, be aware of that. GST receivable is up, and that's strictly just the public service rebate on the input tax rates on the water treatment plant. So you're entitled to the GST back on that, so that's good. Accounts payable, so again, it's, the big increase there is due to the water treatment plant again. There's just over 300,000 in holdback receivable, plus the December invoice came in January, so that's at least 600 of your trade receivable was just to the original in regards to water treatment plant. Wages payable increased partly to increased wage rates, but also more days were in this year than last year. That's just a typical payroll cutoff issue because we accrue wages up to December 31st, and I think they're paid actually January 7th, and so the whole pay period got recorded back in the prior year. Okay, construction loans, so that's just the loan for the water treatment plant in charge at Prime. So the net result is a reduction in net assets of down to 303,000. And that's again primarily due to the water treatment and payables here, loans are up. So commitment note, yeah, we'll go through that note later on, same thing note 12, we'll go through them when we go through the notes. Then our non-financial assets are prepaid, so yeah, there was no sort of adjustment in prepaid. We did some looking that could have been an adjustment, but we just reported that as such. Tangible capital assets, you can see that's increased substantially, and that just ties into the water treatment plant. And we'll look at note 7 when we get for the accumulated surplus when we get into the actual notes. So looking at the revenue. So on the operations side, things were pretty consistent. The one thing there is obviously the sale of land, which was planned. So that's the sort of only sort of difference from budget in the prior year to be noted. And on the expenditure side, everything's pretty much consistent with the prior year, except for wages, which there's some increased hours and some wage increases as well. So that's what makes the increase there. But still a surplus, or your accumulated surplus increased during the year. So next page is change in net assets. That sort of shows how that net asset amount changed. That went from 3 million down to 300,000. So again, it's all driven by the water treatment plant. And next page, cash flow. So you can see the cash flow provided from operations is quite positive, $926,000 was provided through your operations, and obviously fairly spent on capital improvements, and part of that was financed through construction loans. Okay, in the notes. Talk about accounts payable, accounts receivable. So page 7, note 7, page 8. But we'll go through the schedule in a little more detail. Sort of breaks down the different components of the equity. So you can see the operating plan, which is sort of your unaccounted for money, is in a deficit position. So that may tie into some of the talks or charging that. I don't know. But when you see the operating is actually in a deficit, that is problematic to continue in that thing. So you need to dig down a lot deeper. So we'll look at those schedules on schedule 3 and 4 in a few minutes to go through that. Commitments, note 11, page 9.
Can I just ask you a question about the construction loan?
Yep.
At what point in time do we decide or make the decision around converting that loan into a mortgage or whatever it is? At what point in time in the process? I realize this is 2019 and we passed it in 2020, but at what point in time do we do that?
That question for me, or?
I don't know, it's just really rare in that process, right?
What's that done?
Has it been converted?
Yeah.
When did that happen?
A month or more ago. More than that.
Yeah.
6 weeks.
And how was the board involved in that? Was it previously done that we had agreed on the process as to what would happen?
Well, we agreed on it initially when the project started, but it evolved, and we never did. I know that the rate was less than we locked in at, of course, but I don't know exactly where it ended up. We never did hear that.
I'm just wondering how the process could end up with a mortgage, like a conversion from a construction loan to a mortgage or a fixed term loan.
I
we approved it initially when the project started with the understanding that it was a locked-in interest rate, and then
Yeah, it would change from a building loan into the mortgage after the completion of the project and the holdback was to be released.
And do we know if this is a fixed term, is it an open term? Like, you know, when that decision was made, we didn't have things like a conversion study on the table, which would perhaps throw different decision criteria on the table. And so is this something we want to come back to and say, what are our options with respect to this?
Very much so. I'm actually very concerned that we were not involved in that decision because for what you just said, locking us into a 25-year mortgage or, you know. So I would like to know what we locked ourselves into.
I can find out, Robert.
Through the road bank.
Yep,
You build-
I'm in contact with Robert regardless.
Yeah.
So let's have a minute item here that the administrator will give us a report on the status of the loan in terms of what all the appropriate terms and conditions are associated with it, and what our options are, what we expect at that loan.
And when was it rolled over and how?
Yeah, all those details. I just haven't seen in my time on board, I haven't seen any discussion about that loan, so I wanted to know where we were at.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, well, want me to keep going then?
Yeah, thank you.
No problem. So the accumulated, let's just end balance and later in the statements it shows how we get to ending balances. So I'll go through it in a little more detail there. So commitments, note 11, page 9. So at December 31st, this is the same, there's still $1.5 million left to be spent on the project.
Can I have a question? I just got a question here where you broke it down back on page 8. So capital expenditure charge reserve fund, and then our capital reserves, so that's from water connections, like CECs when people connect.
Yeah.
What actually can that be used for? Because I've heard a lot of different comments about that. So can that be used to upgrade our, like what's the controls on that amount of money? What can it actually be used for?
That's up to the board to a certain degree, but it's for expansion, it's not replacement. That's what the money is for, it's for expanding the service.
So it's not for replacing aging pipes? That was my understanding that that's what it was for. Actually, somebody in Urban Systems said that you can't use your CC credits to upgrade your water system, which I think is actually incorrect.
I think you can do that.
Yeah, that's what it's for.
Maybe that's for your new pipe, you would think.
No, they're trying to say it's only for new pipes. It's not to renew existing pipes, but that's incorrect.
What if you were to say go from an 8 to a 10, that would be
An upgrade, but let's say that your pipe is, you want it to not make a different size, but just replace it because it's aging, such as Kilmarnock, for example, right? Poorly installed, not upgrading it, but replacing it. And I believe that that's what your CEC credits are used for.
It's supposed to be in front of the property, for every property.
Could we have some clarity on that then, please? Because I'm confused on this matter as well. So between the capital fund for water and then the capital expenditure charge reserve fund, I'd like to know what these two funds are for. And that's kind of what, you must have that information somewhere.
Yeah, I'll get to those in more detail later on in the financials.
Oh, okay.
Well,
That's not a specific question about what's eligible, what's not. It's, it's a certain amount is board driven, but what's in the financial statements I can talk about. But I'll come to that. What are the differences between those funds when I get to those schedules? So yeah, commitments is the 1.5 million still standing in just the lease, and also referring to conversion of the old water treatment plant back into its original form. So that's a commitment as part of the water treatment construction. And it's the COVID-19 note at the bottom. So page 10, it's this capital asset sort of continuity schedule. So you can see where treatment plant additions during the year is, $3.3 million, almost $3.4 million. And the next page has some other additions for just other small amounts. So the water treatment is the majority of the additions for the system. So schedule 3, page 12. Sort of breaks down all the revenue and expenditures between those different segments as you're trying to describe. So the operating fund is really made up of 2 components. It's water and streetlights and fire. So it's actually 3 build components within your operating fund that there's also operating. So then there's a water capital fund and fire capital. Those are your equity in the actual capital assets. So those are not cash, it's how much you have invested in your physical infrastructure. So then you also have an operating reserve fund, which is has a little more detail on page 13. So you can see there's $129,000 been put aside, some for public works, some $224 for fire, and some information technology amounts. And there's also $106,000 of operational contingency fund. So these are board, you can do with these as you want. There's no restrictions on how you spend them, just board approval. Then you have your capital expenditure charge, and so that's again the exact what that can be funded for. Not 100% sure, but we've charged. You can see at the bottom of that $700,000 of the new water treatment plant has been allocated to that. So at year end, $3.3 million has been spent. $700,000 has been accessed from the water capital exchange fund. So you can see that at the bottom is the reduction. The transfers in, you can see at the bottom there. These are transfers that were done as part of your budget and the overall operating budget that you approved to transfer from the general fund the $251,000 into the water capital expenditure fund, and also into the fire restricted renewal fund as well of $187,000. So those amounts were approved as a budget, and that's what we've processed here. So hopefully, so you can see at the bottom at the end of the year, so still at the end of the year, you have an operating deficit of $520,000. You have 5.8 of equity in your water infrastructure, and you have $256,000 of capital in your fire department. That's the trucks and the fire hauls that your equity is in those. Then you also have 129 of board approved money to set it up for future projects. Then the other ones they do have strings attached that will be spent on certain things.
Question I have is, I think in the Public Works report, we talked about having 10 connections last year. And the capital improvement charges, or expenditure charges, I'm assuming those are the same thing, right? The tax that go in. And so there's $25,000 here tax, but I thought we were like $9,400 a lot, so I would expect to see $94,000.
Some have been paid before. Like if a subdivision was put in, they paid back in the day when it was only $300.
Yeah, there's a lot of files where you're looking at, they paid
Yeah.
$300 in '74.
Yeah, 1974 was paid then.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's just the new lots that haven't been paid that are getting that $9,800. Yeah.
Thank you.
That's all the comments I have. I'm open for questions on it.
Any other questions on that? Is there any other parts of the report that you want us to present through, or is that kind of it?
That was kind of it.
Okay. Any other questions for our external auditor prior to us accepting this report? Approving the financial statement. Okay. So can I have a motion to approve the 2019 audited financial statement for the improvement?
I so move.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? We've had all that discussion. Okay, all in favor? Financial statements are approved.
So I do have a question. Just given COVID and the fact that this is a public meeting and there are no public in attendance, when can we post this financial statement online for the landowners?
I said it'd probably be next week by the time I get everything signed off and all that. I need to get, obviously your guys' signed copy back to me and representatives. It shouldn't take too long, like 2-3 days kind of later. But once, yeah, you can do that electronically and get it to you fairly quickly.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for coming up to present us.
No problem.
Appreciate it very much. Okay, so that's a very long section of approving reports. So now on to new business. Item number 1 is bank signing authority and specifically checks. We have a motion that I will read and ask for a seconder, and then we can have discussion and then we vote. So the suggested motion is to remove all authorized signatories other than Jan Swanson and Ted Harrelson from all accounts, including Union Bay Credit Union account 6494, an operating account, Union Bay Credit Union account 594903, which is point of sale account, the Royal Bank of Canada account 800-107-134-9, business account, and further to add as authorized signatories to all above mentioned accounts Ian Monroe and Ian Ham. So the motion is read, and we have a seconder to that motion.
Second.
Okay, discussion. Trustee Harrelson, comment.
Okay, the only thing I'm querying about is putting Ian Ham on for signing authority for all these accounts. I'm not sure regarding the fire chief what was done before and what is going to be done for now. I haven't got a problem with it, except is there going to be a limitation for the fire chief on whatever he procures of so many $1,000s before it goes to the board for approval? In other words, if he has up to so many $1,000s for regular things that are needed at the fire hall, if there's some ticket item that's going to be over $5,000, that would be brought forward to the board for approval before it went ahead. That is the only thing I'm thinking about. Is this an unlimited signature, or is it limited to so many dollars?
So, do the other trustees mind if I answer that question, or do you want to go around? So, there's two motions that will be made here. One is about check signing authority at the bank, and the other motion is about authority for authorization of expenditures.
That's correct.
I guess what we're dealing with now is the first motion, which is the signing of checks. do we have differentiated signing authority with respect to checks, or can all signers sign all checks?
My understanding is all signers can sign all checks.
So we rely upon our authorization for expenditure approvals to make sure that the right people have approved an expenditure, including the board, before checks are returned. Does that answer your question?
That's right. That's what concerns me.
So what, I will turn it back to you. What is your concern?
Well, my concern is that, okay, signing authority and someone's going out with a checkbook and they're signing for items. Is there a limitation on the check?
Can I tell you what the process is?
What is the
The
process?
process is the invoices come to us, and we have to make sure that they sign off on their invoices, that they're valid, and then we prepare the check. No one's out there with a checkbook spending.
Well, that's right.
Yeah, so we prepare the check with all the documents attached, because you signed off on them.
Yeah.
And then I would sign off, and then one of the other signers, preferably a trustee. And I think the reason why Ian was suggested is because he's senior staff, and if I'm not around, like, there always has to be a trustee signature, always.
And checks are locked up. There's no checkbook that is
No.
floating around.
Well, this is the thing I was concerned about, is that, signing, you know what you're signing. What is it for? When you go through the paperwork, as a trustee, and you're checking, if you're not sure what this amount of money is for, or what it is for, who do you ask? Administrator, normally who you're going to ask.
And my understanding is, I don't know if he'll ever sign off on a check, ever. It was just like, if I get hit by a bus, you would need another signature until something would be changed,
Other than a trustee.
other than a trustee.
Yeah, that was my concern.
And we chose Chief Han over Superintendent McGill because of more likely accessibility. Our superintendent tends to be out in his truck quite a bit. Not in office, right? So the accessibility is a big part of this as well.
Well, I work in Union Bay though.
Yeah,
Ian doesn't. I'm probably here more than Ian is.
So that was the logic of doing it, to have a secondary. And we could always amend this motion to say and add Superintendent McGill or switch them out. But the point was to have 2 senior staff members with signing authority and at least 2 board members with signing authority. And recognizing that the signing of a check is the final step in the process, which our administration controls to say, do we have all of the other steps done to authorize this expenditure? This is just a dual signature. We need 2 signatures, so Chief Ham couldn't use a check if he had his hands on one to spend money anyways, because he would need a second signature.
besides that, it's a credit card.
And he just sort of, that matches his approval. Okay, any other questions or thoughts from you, Trustee Harrelson?
No, that was it. It was just, checks and balances and put on the brakes here and there if necessary. It's, if I come in or Trustee Ditton, Trustee Calder, yourself, you want to know what you're signing off. That's the whole thing.
Trustee Ditton, any discussion?
No comment.
Trustee Culture, any comment? None for me, I think we seconded it. So that's a discussion over. Should we put it to the vote? All in favor of the motion? Okay. Next item on the agenda, water treatment plant facility. Suggested motion, which I'll read and then ask for a seconder, and then discussion. Suggested motion is the board requests the public works superintendent to prepare a full budget for the cost of this facility, which includes cost of acquisition, moving, permitting, installation, and finishing. So there's the motion. Can I have a seconder?
I second that motion.
Okay, discussion.
No, nothing to discuss, it's straightforward, it's just a matter of giving Daniel extra work. So Daniel, but I think it's very good cause.
I really don't.
That's it.
Trustee Bitt,
No?
no discussion? Trustee Culture.
I only, obviously, we need to have an office for the water treatment plant. I did happen to notice in our audit report that we're paying $22,000 a year for renting, I presume that's renting of the Union Bay office, including sort of that extra office, and so I'm just wondering if we could,
I looked into that.
yeah,
The lease is up for the cabin December 31st. We cannot get out of it before
Yeah.
then, and that's $600 a month. So what we were doing is Sonia and Kate can come down to the cabin to write reports, to use the bathroom, to do whatever they need to do in a quiet space. And then basically at the end of that period is when the new office will be available out of the plant.
would that eliminate, at least using, like, when you say cabin, do you mean that little
It's
separate
called the
office?
cabin.
Yeah.
And that's so we will no longer be renting
Okay,
after
okay,
December
that's what it is,
31st.
thank you.
So we will be using it up
Save the
until.
money somehow. Okay, that's all I have.
My comment on this would be that I fully support this idea of having this office and facility there. The nature of this motion is really about making sure we have full costs, right? So there's the cost of acquiring it, but my understanding of the accounting rules is we will also capitalize it, and we will have to then authorize the expenditure for the moving costs and everything else that it would take for that to become functional. And we didn't have that information at the cow meeting, and so that was how this motion came to be, right? As fast as we can have that and prepare, have that information and the supporting bylaw that comes with it, that says, bylaw to authorize the expenditure, I personally am happy to approve it. I just want to know the full cost of it before we do that. Yes. Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor? Okay, the next motion, and there's a pair of them here with respect to the topic of AGM and election. So the suggested motion, which again we'll read and ask for a second before discussion, is to schedule the 2020 annual general meeting for Thursday, September the 10th at 7 p.m.
Seconder.
Okay, discussion, Trustee Carlson.
Well, if all goes well and we can get past this COVID thing, the sooner we can have an AGM and election, the better. Let's shoot for it, if it happens.
Trustee Bitt.
Yeah, I'm all in favor of that date. I think it's good timing for an election, and before the COVID either goes one way or the other, so I think we need to do it.
Yeah, I concur. We're obviously going to follow what the regulations, health regulations are at the time, but I believe we can do it successfully. The landowners are anxious, so good to go.
I totally support it. I'm wondering a little bit, how are we going to do it? And so I think there's some work to the administration to work with our chief elections office, or actually in this case, not the elections officer, but just work through it with the public safety, health people, to say what does a safe AGM look like, and whether we have to use virtual meeting technology as well as face-to-face technology. But we need to have it for the sake of transparency and making sure people have an opportunity to engage. But we need to do it in a way that protects people's health. Trustee Carlson, any further comments?
No, I think that's it. I hope we can move forward and get it done and get back with it.
Trustee Culture.
I just want to add that this motion doesn't specify, but once the AGM is announced, then there comes into play the non-nomination period, because there's election of 3 trustees, so all those dates have to be kind of back done and announced publicly, blah, blah, so it's kind of more than what it just looks like here. But, yeah, we need to do it.
Yeah, and so trustees' culture's comments are appropriate. Those are addressed in the next motion that comes up as well in terms of how those things relate. So there's no further discussion on scheduling the AGM motion. All in favor?
Yay.
So suggested motion with respect to the election is to instruct the administrator to prepare a plan to schedule an election incorporating the September 10th, 2020 annual general meeting date, accommodating guidance received from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing regarding new alternatives for voting and following the rules established by the public health officer applicable to the election process. So can I have a second?
Second.
Okay, discussion. Trustee Carlson, any comments on this?
No, not very good, it's pretty straightforward.
Trustee Fitton?
Yeah, hopefully the election officer can take on a lot of this stuff, or I guess Gary as well, if he can resource.
Peter will be able to handle it.
Yeah, okay, well, that's good. Yeah, I think the motion is well worded.
Trustee Colger?
I was just gonna say, if you need any help with this, I'm more than, especially orchestrating the extra stuff that might be involved with following the COVID stuff, I'm more than willing to help.
My comments were have to do it, but also I don't underestimate the complexity of this. This could be quite an undertaking, and we should probably get started on it sooner than later. If we back up the nomination period, we need to be getting nominations, calls for nominations out within weeks, I would think.
You'll all be complimented.
Okay, so any other discussion? Okay, all in favor? Okay. So, next item is amendment to bylaw 278. This is a motion that was brought forward by me. And the motion is to instruct the public works superintendent, again, to recommend a new section be added to bylaw 278, which would provide for bulk water sales to interested parties who do not have an existing commercial or residential connection, which would specify the rate structure. Sorry, there should be a comment there, a connection. The bylaw would specify the rate structure bracket fixed and variable charges, considering the cost of water and other costs such as labor, hours of operation, location, fuel, etc. So, second.
Second.
Okay, discussion. I'll start this just because it was my motion, and the background of this was actually triggered by our public works superintendent who got a phone call from a contractor who said, "Can I buy water?" And they did not have any account with us. And our bylaws do not have a provision for selling water outside of a commercial or a residential account. And in that particular case, our solution was to set the contractor up with a commercial account. But it didn't really reflect the true nature of the transaction, and yet our bylaws didn't allow for that in any other way. So we thought it would be appropriate to pursue enabling our public works department with a bylaw structure that would make this easy. And hence the idea of saying, what is it that we need to put in place? Our rate structures for commercial have a bi-monthly payment or a fixed charge that you pay whether you use it or not. And it recognizes the fixed costs of operating the system, as well as the variable costs of processing the water. And I think there's a similar kind of thing that needs to be recognized with respect to bulk water sales, is that there's a cost of setting up the transaction, if you will, and having staff present to fill the truck and calculate volume and all those sorts of things, right? So I think it's not just as simple as putting numbers in. It's $1.50 a cubic meter. It's thinking through. So how is it? Is it some number like $100 to pull up, and then it's water figure out what makes the most sense and then bring it forward before we apply. So that's the genesis of this from my perspective. Trustee Harrelson's got any comments?
Well, we can somehow simplify it because you're going to have somebody trucking water for a specific construction job or whatever, and I think that's what we need to know. This person isn't just coming with a truck and loading up water in a bottle of water. In other words, what is its purpose? And I think that has to pertain to the bylaw of the purpose that the water is being used for. If it's using for wetting down roads because of dust during construction, or if it's used for something along those lines. Because I don't want to see them just loading up water to turn around and go to a water bottling plant, etc. So, you know, it sounds silly, but if that was going on, we would be using an awful lot of water. So, again, I think it has to be for construction purpose.
Trustee Good.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing to put in place for Dan so that it's straightforward, cut and dry with people who want to get water. I think, you know, we probably see for hydro seeding and that, I think Ted's got a good point, that it should clearly state what it's used for, right? It's not for resale. I just wondered after you went through if the backflush water could be used or something like that. Or is there any way of this person?
Yeah, there's no way of.
Yeah.
The trucks have to get certified to be able to carry drinking water. So they have to go through VDOT, they have to pass all those requirements. So what we're going to be probably, I don't think we're looking at a big sale here.
No.
It's like, I really like the way we kind of have it set up with them paying the $90 becoming, even if it's for 2 months. We're going to be seeing it for construction purposes. But if you look into the future, Hornby Island gets a lot of water delivered to it. And it all comes from the CDRD. So,
Cisterns, right?
yeah, filling wells and cisterns, yeah. So, you know, our location compared to the fill-up station by Vandy is pretty good for those water haulers. So I think it would be, there definitely would be some resale. Because that's what CBRD is doing. They're selling to the bulk water guy who's delivering it to wherever and charging that customer. So it's going to be a discussion that you guys are going to have to feel comfortable with. Like, it might just be better for us to just say no and not even go down this road. But I firmly believe in 10 years, Hornby's going to be in a real they're going to be in a real predicament for water. They already are. And if we are in the business of selling water, that's exactly what we do. So I think maybe before we get into this, we should have a discussion further, you know, just to see if that's even something we want to go down that road or not. I don't think we can stipulate what we're going to do with the water after they buy it from us. I don't think we're going to be able to say, you know, we're going to charge you for the water, but you can only use it for this, or you can, you know, once it leaves that lamp, it's their water now.
Through the chair, Dan, could you check with the regional district
Yes.
to see what volume of water they've been selling for that purpose?
Definitely, yes. Yeah, and I'll find out exactly what
There's going to be a lot.
Oh, I think they do go through quite a bit. They're like, I believe they go through quite a bit. I think there's 4 drinking water hauling trucks in town.
Yeah, I think we didn't really think about the idea of reselling drinking water as such. This motion was really to make it more fluid for somebody that wants water for hydro seeding. Right. There's a set rate in place so that it's easier for you. Yeah. You mentioned that the last person, did they start a commercial account and did it that way?
Yes, so we charge them, so at $90, which is our, every 2 months for our commercial account. So they actually paid the $90 and then we charge them on top of that for which is probably more than what they would have got from the CBRD, but as soon as you start cruising around with a big truck with full of water, you're spending a lot of money.
15-mile haul.
Exactly, so that's, it was,
I don't know though, doing that charge that way, if it's in our best interest, I think there should be probably a flat fee to cover, you know, if somebody's gonna have to meet the truck, hook it up, get the water in there, make sure that, you know, the capacity of the truck, how much water we're getting. So I think our thoughts were leaning towards more a flat fee per truck full, depending on the amount of water. So like a $75 charge or whatever you feel is within the labor rate and the cost of what it's doing, and then the charge for water on top of that. I would rather see that kind of a fee, and that for now, I think we should control that you're not filling drinking water trucks, you're filling bulk water trucks that are hydro seeding or water.
right.
If that was hydro seeding, wasn't a certified truck that you fill, I don't imagine, it was just a water truck.
Oh, definitely, that was just a maintenance truck.
Yeah.
A road crew truck.
So that's kind of my thought. I don't think we should, it'd be another discussion whether we should be selling bulk drinking water or not. So.
Trustee Colvin?
I believe we do have to have a bylaw that provides for bulk water. It's going to be drinking water, because that's all we have.
That's all we got.
And that it should be a fair reflection of what the going rate is and what other people are doing. I know that you mentioned earlier that you're wondering whether we're charging enough kind of overall in pulling together the stats for this bylaw that you're going to write up and we're going to presumably approve. Maybe you can do some research in what costs are, and maybe as a separate discussion, maybe our water rate cost. The fact is, our water is far more valuable today than it was 2 months ago, because we have a $4.2 million treatment plant, and it is wonderful, but it costs money. So that's a separate issue. You're on that track anyway of looking into what is fair market value. So I support this amendment. That's all I have to say.
So this has been good discussion, and it's raised two thoughts in my mind that we might want to add into the discussion. One would be, should we provide the ability to take water outside of the UBID district, or is there water for the use inside? And so there's a potential. I'm not saying I recommend that, but can we consider whether we want the water to be used outside Union Bay? Like, so, on one hand, do I want to deprive Hornby Island of drinking water if that they need it? No, I don't, right? So the consideration is do we care about the geographic bounds where the water is being used? A second question that came to my mind is, at what point in time do we say no? If we're in stage 2 water restrictions, if we're in stage 3 water restrictions, do we only allow this bulk water loading in stage 1 or not? No restrictions. So I'd like to consider some of those things too, right? If the Hornby Island drinking water truck shows up and we're at, stage 0, do we care? And I guess the thing I care about is, do we create a dependency that we now don't have any option but to continue to provide them with water, and then we end up in a well, how does that fit in with our landowners and their needs for water and all those sorts of things? So I'd like to consider some of these things before we do it. That'd be my guidance on that. But I still love the as written bylaws to have you recommend it, or not. Maybe is the thing to say, I don't recommend this for all the reasons, right? But I think that the nature of this is that it isn't a bi-monthly account. It is a potentially labor-intensive activity that probably deserves its own rate structure if we have this pattern.
The nice thing we do have going for us is the plant is staffed Monday to Friday, 8 to 4, 7 to 3:30, 8 to 4. But I've never gotten a call yet for drinking water. Now, that's because up to 2 months ago, our water probably was.
Nobody.
People were looking for that. So, and I haven't gotten any calls at all for it. The only times I've been approached is like for the hydro seeding, a little bit of road maintenance. That's it. It's only been 2 calls in the last 10 years. So very limited right now. But like I like your idea. Like if you start selling it, when are you going to be able to stop?
So I like that sort of research you've done. So that's in my comments. Trustee Harrelson, any further comments?
Yeah, I think we should develop it to a point where during the situation, during water restriction times and so on, there should be a place within that ruling to put on brakes if necessary. In other words, have a limit to water being used, even in bulk water sales. If all of a sudden we're in a situation where we have a water shortage.
If we're in a water shortage, everybody else will be for sure.
Well, that's right. So it should be-
That's when they're going to want it.
Yeah, and that's when they should be able to put a stop to it if necessary.
Then we wouldn't be selling anymore.
That's right.
Yeah.
Because you have to serve the landowners first.
By all means.
Thank you.
I think for the bylaw, we don't need to amend it with this new idea. It's up to Dan to, I do want to see a flat fee for construction use water. Ian's point about what stage we cut that off at. And then leave it up to you to come back to us about selling drinking water and what's your suggestion. And if it can improve our revenue and not create a shortage in any way, I think our plant's probably at a sweet spot where, our costs aren't going to go up that much more for some more usage. So maybe we can get some more revenue out of that. But I think this is worded very well that you can put your ideas together and come back to us and see what you think.
Great.
Trustee Culture, anything further?
No.
Nothing more from me either. Shall we go to vote? All in favor? More work for our public works. Okay, next motion, amendment to bylaw 194. The suggested motion is as follows. We'll ask for a second and discussion afterwards. Create an amendment to bylaw 194 water conservation and drought management, replacing sections 8 and 9A with the same restrictions defined for the Comox Valley watering system, allowing for watering on specific days of the week rather than odd or even numbered days. So that's the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Jones.
Oh, actually, I should start because it's my turn.
As I mentioned at our committee of the whole meeting, this was put on here out of guilt by me because every second week I violate our watering bylaw. And that's because my automated sprinkler system does not allow me to set it to odd or even numbered days. It can only be set to specific days of the week. I suspect I'm not the only one in that, and I suspect there are sprinkler systems that work in the other way as well. Everyone I've ever run in my life has only ever been able to be set by days of the week. So, we are, in some ways, by nature, I am violating it, but I'm not violating the spirit of it because I'm still, watering the number of days I'm allowed, actually less as a result of this. I think there's a value in aligning it to the rest of the region. If, for example, in the newspaper or on local radio, discussions of watering restrictions and how they work, will they be confusing to our landowners if ours work differently? So I just think there's great value in having this alignment, and I don't think it's a big change for us to make, nor a lot of risk to us, and I think we'll actually use less water because, basically now, 1 week you get the water 3 days, the next week you get the water 4. Under stage 1, under the Comox Valley watering system, everybody gets 3 days a week, nobody gets 4. So it does kind of half a day a week every week for each household, right? So that's that's the nature of doing this and why I want us to make this change. So over to trustee Harrison for comments.
Yeah, I'm not saying everybody has a automatic watering system, but again, if you have a system that you can only program it to come on at 2 hours at night and 2 hours in the morning or whatever, it does make it rather awkward. And again, it seems like the rest of the Comox Valley is on this other system that works with them. So I haven't got a problem with it. As long as it's put out there on our site so that people can understand it, maybe even in the water bill, when the water bill goes out, with a slip of paper that defines the new way of watering your lawn. So I have no problem with it.
Yeah, I support the amendment to the bylaw. I think it's a good idea. There's a lot of people who want sprinkler systems, and we need to have it so that they can set their systems to our restrictions, so makes sense.
Trustee Calder?
Yeah, no, I have no issue, it sounds like a good idea.
Any further discussion?
So we haven't been on stage 2 for quite a long time. I can't even remember the last time we went on stage 2. It's been over 10 years, easily. I'm not sure how that schedule works. Can you explain to me? The only reason I say it is because, like, if we're driving down the street, we know what day it is. It's just a no-brainer, right? And if you look on this side of the road, all the numbers are even. On this side of the road, odd. So if this one's going off and it's not days, it just boom, it instantly clicks into us. So, and we have very little enforcement too. Yeah. So I don't care which days it waters on. It's just as long as
Yes,
it's fair.
Stage 2 has days of the week still. It's just if your days are Monday, Wednesday, Friday on stage 1, they're Monday and Friday on stage 2. And if you're Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, you're Tuesday, Saturday on stage 2.
So you're still operating off your house number for,
Yes.
for a certain day of the week?
Yes.
Okay.
It's just you have 2 days instead of 3 days on stage 2.
Okay. Perfect. I got it.
And their bylaws actually align pretty closely with stage 3 and 4,
Yeah.
which basically says turn your system off, turn your vehicle off.
That's, I think, when we would, if we ever got into that, we would definitely do some enforcement. Usually it's the neighbor that gives us a call. That's usually what happens.
Okay, any other discussion?
No,
All in favor? Okay, I believe that concludes the public portion of this meeting, so would like to have a motion to adjourn to the in-camera portion of this meeting. Motion?
Make a motion that we go in camera.
Okay, second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay, which means we should turn off the video.